Hello, and welcome to a live author reading with none other than Canadian horror author Nancy Kilpatrick. My name is Mark Leslie Lefebvre, and I am honored to be your spooky host for this evening. And I'm honored that I get to introduce Nancy. Nancy, welcome.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Nice to be here.
Oh, great. Always great to do these with you. It's so much fun because, I think I've said this before, I think you were the very first author where I ever got an autograph from in person. It was so
Yeah,
exciting. I still have a
yeah.
copy of that vampire novel. So, what are you going to treat us with tonight?
Tonight I'm reading a 7-minute ghost story, and it's called Four-Sided Triangle. So I
Cool.
can just go right into it
Yeah, let's go into
and go back
Four-Sided
and forth.
Triangle. I'll let you take center stage and enjoy.
Okay, thank you. All right, Four-Sided Triangle. You scan the empty subway platform, uneasy. A glance at your watch, then at the digital time overhead, reveals the late hour. The trains do not run often this time of night. I can see you wondering why a man like yourself is standing here now when you could have been home earlier, safe in your bed. Wondering why you do this so frequently, why you feel so disconnected. Your hands jam deep into your raincoat pockets. You jerk your head to the right and stare down the track into the black oblivion of the tunnel, in my direction. This sudden movement causes your body to weave. You do not see what you hope to, and as you turn away, I hear a prayer mumbled, "Please let the train arrive soon." I suspected you would come here again at night, alone. You're my age now, although I've been here 5 years already. It's nice to have company. I get lonely. It's as if I am part of a triangle and cannot exist on my own. You must know how that feels. I balance on one of the rails and lean into the platform. I can feel neither surface and stare up at you. Because you're drunk, your perceptions are heightened but blurred, and your intuition soars. You look down, squinting, almost as if you can see me. I know, though, that you cannot. Few see beyond the concrete of the intangible, but many sense this nebulous realm. I am like a negative image, white on black, your opposite. All that is solid about you is ethereal in me. I emit no female sense. I can no longer be touched or caressed. And yet we are separated by only a crease in time. You experience a mild air current pass over you as I edge along the track closer. For a split second, you imagine the train might be coming after all. I see you often, here during other hours, requisite brown briefcase in hand, reading a newspaper, your harried face mingled with thousands of other harried faces, looking hungry, not prepared to confront your fate. During the day, you are gregarious, and it feels abnormal to you now being here by yourself. You scan over the long platform again, peering at the dark corners, trying to see around pillars, wrinkling your nose at an offensive odor, afraid you are not as alone as you believe. All at once, you sense me. The hairs on the back of your neck prickle. Fear makes your movements frenetic. You stagger past the newspaper box, but the lurid headline, "A Fatal Accident," cannot catch your eye. It is the tracks that draw you as you near the platform's edge. Caution becomes automatic. You wobble a foot from the rim, examining the cold steel in the pit below and the dangerous third rail. You find the bleakness of the metal strangely uplifting. My dark world of base metals is so foreign to your own. There are no plastic cases here, pregnant with the latest microchips, absolutely already obsolete. All ties of finite connections, like a family with a long ancestry and the certainty of progeny. For a moment, you long to melt the iron in your blood with the iron rails and become immortal. I cannot be replaced by the latest model. Your ambivalence is touching. I know you so well, I can almost empathize. You feel my struggle for emotional life ride the air and embed itself in your lungs like a dense, wet fog. Your eyes flash the horror you experience. I am a disease, digging in, becoming part of you, as you will forever be a part of me. Panic sets in. You cannot breathe. You gasp for air. In the distance, train wheels grind against the metal tracks. Their shriek causes you to reel back from the platform's edge. Your hand claws at your throat, your body, off kilter, threatens to catapult into my waiting arms. I know what it is like to pitch forward alone, crashing into the icy steel rails only to be crushed and severed beneath the sharp wheels of an oncoming train, flesh singed beyond recognition when a hand touches the high voltage rail. I know the screech of metal against metal and bone. Human screams multiply, faces blur, warmth seeps from the flesh. Lack of oxygen strangles the fetus within, so dependent, and all the while aware that the clumsiness of a drunken stranger tore me from the living. Yes, I know this and more. That's why when you fall into my arms, I will catch you, believe me. The powerful train barrels toward the station too fast. You clutch your coat collar tight to your throat. Your muscles tense. Sweat streaks your forehead and trickles down your temples to your flushed cheeks. Tears gush from your wounded eyes. You stare at me, pleading for forgiveness. I beckon you to join me, but you must hurry. You shake your head and at the same time lurch forward like a walking corpse. The train whistle blasts a warning. The air rumbles. The concrete beneath your feet vibrates, or are you trembling? I grasp your ankle, forcing your foot to the edge again. You open your mouth to scream, but the sound is crushed by the whistle's extended shriek. Only seconds remain. Take the step. Join me forever. You teeter on the edge. Leap into my world now. Wheels screech, but the brakes cannot quickly halt so many tons of steel. A pale face presses against the conductor's window of the lead car. The expression is haunted, fast frozen in déjà vu. Metal passes through me, devoid of a physical body. I cannot feel it, yet the lingering memory reminds me of the night our triangle formed, when, in an eternal moment, we connected. I examine your distorted features as you stumble onto the train. The doors slam closed, the conductor is rattled, but manages to throw the correct switch, and the train moves forward like a silver entity at home in the bleak tunnels. Soon it abandons the station, as you have both abandoned me. It is always quiet here after the last train passes. I fall back onto the tracks, unable, onto a familiar spot, although I cannot rest here or anywhere. I know you will return to this station again and again at this time because you must. For the same reason the conductor drives through here nightly, always at this hour. I will wait for you, for both of you. I know someday you'll join me. I will make sure of that. The end. Can't hear you, Mark.
Because I have my mic muted.
Oh,
So
okay.
you didn't hear me clear in my throat while you were reading. That was awesome. I was saying that was great. Thank you
Thank you.
so much. So I have to. There are a couple questions, and I know there's some comments that I'm going to pop up and leave for you. But
Okay.
where did the title come from?
Well, actually, the title was stolen by me from my good friend Caro Souls. She came up with this title many years ago when we were in a writer's workshop together for 10
Okay.
years, back in the 80s, I guess, 70s. I don't know when we were there. But she came up with the title, and I loved it. As soon as I heard it, I said, oh my God, I want to steal this, and did. And I don't think she ever used it. I think she had come up with it for a novel title, and then the novel I'm thinking of anyway has a different title now. So, and of course, we worked in different genres. We always have. So we're
Right.
never competing, which is probably why we're such good friends. So that's where the title's from.
That's fantastic. What about the story itself? What was the inspiration for that story?
Well, this one did have an inspiration. I used to live in Toronto, and Toronto has always been a really safe city, or considered to be so. Maybe not as much anymore, but back in the day, it was very safe. People were friendly, and we weren't used to violence in a way. Like, it was really extraordinary for something violent to happen. And there was the situation that happened on the subway. And what what it was that a woman was waiting for the train, and this man came from behind her and pushed her onto the tracks, and she died. And it was a big deal because, maybe that happens other places, but it didn't happen in Toronto. It was just so
Right.
extraordinary. And you would immediately think that this is somebody who knew the woman, like a sort of disgruntled spouse or something, somebody she worked with. Or you would think that it might be, I don't know, it could be anything. But what it was a man who didn't even know her, and she didn't do anything to him on the platform. It was
Wow.
a totally random thing where he had a mental problem, and he was just on the platform, and here's a woman standing there at the edge, and for some reason he just shoved her in front of the train. And
Wow.
so I don't have a follow up to the story. I don't know what happened after that to the man or anything like that. But yeah, it was really shocking, and it stayed with me. I think it stayed with a lot of people.
Well,
And
that's
somehow this story came from there, and I wanted to write something about, more from the ghost perspective. That
yeah.
you're there forever. Ghosts tend to be where they die. That's where they live, and if they exist, that's where they are. And so I wanted to write something. How would the ghost feel about being there and being stuck with trains going by all the time? And do ghosts have the connection? And then seeing that same person and the same conductor. And what's interesting about it, is the conductor, which I read about this somewhere at one point. There are many things like suicides on trains and subway trains and all that, and it's curious that most of the drivers, even though they go through a trauma over it, of course, because they're driving, or I don't think anybody drives these anymore. They're all
Yeah.
digitalized, but they're in the front, and it's shocking to them. But most of them go back to work. And that was the idea, that this conductor goes back to work.
Every night, the same time.
5 years
Yeah.
later, he's still back there. He's driving the train back and forth, and happens to be the last train. And then, of course, the guy who did the drunken guy who did the accidental pushing, he's haunted in his own way, in a different way. He's still an alcoholic, but he's also very terrified. He's terrified to be there because he's not, he has to be there to get home. But yeah, so I wanted to write from the ghost perspective. What would it be like? Does the ghost, the ghost wants revenge, of course. Many of them
Wow.
do. That's sort of what they're about. But yeah, that's it.
Well,
That's it.
good. Cool. I'm going to pop up a comment from Elaine. Elaine says, I love a good second person story, which kind of leads me to want to ask a question based off that. But there's another comment that I think Sam says, fantastic story. I've never read a story that is simultaneously first and second person.
Mhm.
So I wanted to, riffing off of those, ask you why you chose that voice.
Well, I was sort of monkeying around with second person for a while. The last time I read was a story in second person, it's got its pluses and minuses for sure. But for this one, I wanted the ghost to have more substance, and that I could do the second person as I did in the last story I read that was set in Mexico, which is more haunting in a way. But I
Right.
wanted this to be like feel like a real person. So the first person is thrown in there too.
Okay. Cool. And then there was an element where you talk about you two, that like as if there were two people, and that made me wonder if it was the person who was being pushed and the person who was pushing. Was that a reference to that, or did I just mishear that?
I'm sorry. What did you
There,
hear?
there was a moment where the narrator, the voice, talks about you two, and I don't know, was that you two the person who was gonna die on the tracks, and the conductor, or was it the person who was the person who was
Oh
pushing?
yes, at the end it's the two. It's the conductor and
Okay.
the man on the tracks, and of course the fourth part of the triangle is the fetus.
Ah.
So she was pregnant, and she was
Ah.
killed by this man who
Oh.
was drunk and probably just nudged her accidentally because he was drunk, and she fell onto the tracks and died. But she was pregnant at the time, so that's why it's called four-sided triangle.
Ah.
The
Okay.
conductor, the man, the fetus, and the woman. There's four involved.
Right. Right.
Hmm.
Wow. And that title, of course, is thanks to Caro. And Little Miss says, "I know Caro." But Little Miss also says, "I have a friend who drives a train. and they go through trauma when people commit suicide. Yeah, I can imagine that. I mean, that's got to be I mean, unfortunately, it's got to be one of those things that happens, right?
Yeah.
That they have to deal with. Wow. There are some other comments I want to share. Let me see. I'll have to go right back up to the top. And where was it? Yeah. So Little Miss says, I put my cross stitch away for 7 minutes.
That was the email I sent around.
Sam says, it's good to see you. I'm watching over on YouTube because there's a greater delay on Facebook as well.
I'm sitting by the router this time, hoping it won't be,
well, no, there is a delay between our live and people seeing it.
Right.
And I don't know why there's that. It was probably only about a minute or 30-second delay. So Dorothy Ann says, so enjoying this.
Oh, hi, Dorothy Ann.
And Elaine says, awesome. This must have been just as the story was finishing. So we had some clapping as well. And then Little Miss says, Nancy just likes weird stuff. Comment from Sam about the beautiful necklace.
Oh, yeah. This is made of stone, and it's from Rio. It's a skull. You can see it. A friend of mine goes to Rio every year and get through the winter, and she brought it back for me. From one of the favelas, which is the sort of very poor areas of Rio, but they have craftspeople there that make things. They carved it out of the stone. Amazing.
Oh, wow. Cool. Interesting. And then Little Miss, who I'm going to reveal their identity if you're not sure who they are, says, that's sneaky pregnant in terms of the fourth triangle. But Little Miss says, it's Lisa, just in case you weren't sure of the pseudonym.
Lisa. Oh, Lisa. Okay. I think I know which Lisa we're talking about. Okay.
Excellent. Cool. So that, do you, I have to ask, are you still regularly writing short fiction? Are you sending out? Yeah.
Yeah. I have 2 pieces I sold fairly recently. There's one in, what's it called? Gothic Ghouls, I think it's called. That'll be coming out at some point. And my story is a sort of riff on Dorian Gray, female Dorian Gray, Dora Gray.
Oh, cool. Okay, awesome.
And then there's another one that I just sold to Jeannie Rector for. She's doing an anthology in print and ebook, and it's called the Horizon Book of Werewolf Stories. I think it's called. My story is what is my story called? Wolf Moon.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Oh, awesome.
I have other ones that have come out already, but those are upcoming. So yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of locked into novels mostly these days, but I still write stories, a couple a year. Yeah.
Do you write a story when you get a request from an editor, or you see a submission that you want to? You don't just write from inspiration. You go, okay, I'm going to write a werewolf story for you.
No, it's usually when I'm asked for a story because I just don't. I'm so enmeshed in the novels that I don't move away from them unless there's something that comes my way that's that sounds interesting.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because sometimes those things happen. Now there's a question actually. Sam just popped in and says, Nancy, do you think short fiction is still a good way to break into traditional publishing?
I don't have any answers about publishing anymore. I used to. I mean, I don't think anybody knows anything about what's happening or what's going to happen. And I guess if you're 20 years old, you're in a better position to answer that question than me, because I really, I come out of traditional publishing. I have no idea. There's a lot of anthologies around for short fiction, that's for sure. And many of them don't pay money. So if you're, you just want to get your name out there and your work out there for people to read, that's a good route to go.
Okay.
Or they pay little money, some of them. In which case, you're just doing it to sort of move yourself along. I guess it does get your name known. I mean, it used to in my past, but I guess it still does that. Your name gets known, and then people, when you do have some longer work, they'll want to read it, hopefully. But this business is so different now. I can't speak of it because I know nothing. I know nothing anymore. Zero. I don't know anything.
Decades of experience in the industry. So I know you have short story collections. Now I think you have worked with publishers on those. You've also done some on your own. Has it been a
I have a few collections that were done by publishers in the past, and then I checked out self-publishing myself. So I took two novella length stories and I did ebooks for each of them. And then a small publisher in Canada called Baskerville Books did print books of both of those. So I found that it was really difficult to do the ebooks, not to write them or anything. Those stories were already written, but the whole
Right.
process was so shocking because I'm not a tech person. Obviously, that's why I love you, Mark, and you staying with me and helping me. I can't do any of this, so all I can do is live.
Are you going to write amazing stories and read them and talk about them?
But yeah, the self-publishing was strange, and I'm not sure. I don't know what to expect from it. I really don't. And I've got
Right.
those two novellas are on Amazon, but they're also through Draft to Digital, other places like in Barnes and Noble and everywhere else you can
Right.
get them, I guess. And then I've recently put them together. I don't know why I don't know why I did this, but I put them together into one book.
Right.
So that I thought maybe I would take away the two novellas and just have one that has both in the same, because they're both vampire novellas. I
Right.
put them in the same book called Vampire's Darker Desires. So I don't know. I kind of lost track of that. Just it got
Well, I
busy.
like I like the fact that you actually have a publisher that's publishing the print version.
Yeah, those two. Yeah, of those
Yeah,
two.
and then you're controlling the ebook version, so you're kind of doing a little bit of both, which is
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, the publisher, offered to do it, and I said because I thought, well, I'm having such a difficult time with the ebooks. How am I going to do the print book? Because
yeah.
that's beyond me. So I still don't really grasp the whole thing, but it's. I think if you're 20, you've got it down. You can do it on your cell phone, while you're eating lunch. But
Yeah, there are writers who actually write novels on their cell phones as well.
oh.
My thumbs are too big. I can't do it. I'm okay. Come on, you and I started out on typewriters.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, my fingers are telling me yes,
Yeah,
it was a bad move.
I remember. I know what a self-addressed stamped envelope is.
Yes. For
Uh,
you that
did,
out
did,
there that don't know what that is,
do
it's an
you still
SAST,
do you
self-addressed
still
stamped envelope, that whenever you submitted anything in the past to traditional publishers, anthologies or magazines or anything, novels, short story, you had to send this envelope that you paid for, the
right?
stamps, to get it back. And that's the only way you mostly find out whether you were accepted or not.
Or here in Canada, you had to get an international reply coupon so that
Yeah,
a
and it
U.S.
cost
market
a
it'd be like
fortune.
a dollar 50 for a 25-cent stamp.
Yes, so that if you had to pay like $4 in postage from whatever country it was, you were buying a ton of those. It was very
Yeah.
expensive to publish traditionally in the past.
It was. I remember. I mean, the very first short story I published, I sold for 99 cents. I didn't know what to do, but I'd gotten to a point in my career where I refused to send it to a market that would pay less than 5 cents a word, and I exhausted the markets with rejections, and then I self-published it, and then when I finally made the $300 that I would have made selling the story, I realized all the money I had lost mailing the story out was probably $300.
Yeah, if you're a writer out there here listening to this, don't think about the money. That's not the thing to do. It's just, it may or may not come, but yeah.
Yeah. Now, can I ask? You've sent some stories off to editors have solicited stories from you, and you've submitted. When was the last time you actually did a physical snail mail Canada Post submission to a market?
Years, really years.
Wow.
Thank God
Yeah, I
for
can't.
email.
I can't remember. It used to be the thing, right? It used to be the only way. And I
Yeah.
remember, trying to remember the first electronic submission, which is probably a long time ago. I think, did you not edit a World Fantasy anthology that I was fortunate enough to be in? That
Yeah.
was on a
Yes.
CD-ROM.
Yes.
I still have a copy of it. Actually, it's on my bookshelf here. And I was
That's
like, yeah,
actually
Nancy was the editor of that.
that was a great thing to do because the event was held in Canada,
Yeah.
and so the person who organized it, Mike, he wanted to do. They always do a book at these events. It's like a hard book
Yeah.
of, stories and whatever. But because it was in Canada, they wanted something special, and so and it was just at the time when it was kind of trendy. It was becoming trendy to do a CD-ROM, and
Because we were all on AOL.
so it was full of all kinds of Canadian writers chipping in stories for free, and artists chipping in artwork for free, and even musicians. And there was a movie in there, and I did interviews with a lot of places that were,
Yeah.
exciting Canadian places, World Fantasy. So I talked to Cirque du Soleil and places like that. So yeah, it was a good thing. It was cute.
That's fantastic. I have to pop up this comment from Dorothy Ann. Dorothy Ann says, I remember the self-addressed envelopes. I could always tell if they liked what I wrote because the envelope would come back skinny. Right? Yeah, if it's skinny, it meant they didn't put the first few pages or whatever back as a rejection, right? It meant it was probably a letter, and it maybe even a check.
Yeah, check. What a concept.
No, it's funny. I still do get some checks for some submissions, which is kind of cute, especially for some of the royalties. Right? I think there was a check for 68 cents American. And I was like, yes, I can't wait to bring this to the bank, and then have everyone be so jealous of me. So,
You're lucky it doesn't cost any money to cash it.
oh yeah, no kidding. No kidding. Lil Miss says, or Lisa says, you guys are cracking me up and making me feel. All three of us, Lisa. Excellent. Well, that was a lot of fun. I hope we get to do this again. I love listening to your stories, and obviously, it's fun just to chat about writing and short stories with you as well.
Well, I should mention before I go, first of all, doing another one of these on May 27th. So
okay, May 27th. People write that down.
More to come. Anyway,
okay.
People always want to know where a story was published, so I thought I would write it down this time.
Oh, yes. Excellent. Thank you.
So the first time that story was published was in 1998 in an anthology called Horror's 365 Scary Stories. And that was actually published, believe it or not, by Barnes and Noble. They had that. There were no ebooks then. It was a print book, and it was a giant, massive. I should have pulled it out of my shelf here. It's a really thick book of, and I think I have 3 stories in that book because they were so desperate to get stories. They were saying to send a bunch of them from everybody. So I think I had 3 in there. The second time it was published was by me in Cold Comfort, which was done by Dark Tales Publishing, and that was 2001. And unfortunately for me, Dark Tales went out of business the minute my book came out. This is not, exaggerated. The book didn't get distributed. It's a beautiful book. I love the book. I love the look of it. It's beautiful. It's got a cover by Alan Clark on it. Anyway, that was that. And then the last time it's been published was recently, 2017, in Group Hex 2. And Group Hex is still on Amazon, as is 365, scary stories. So those can be found if you want to see other people's work as well as mine. So yeah,
I was looking because I'm sure I have that book on the other side of the shelves here, so I was going to go see if I could grab it quickly.
It's a giant book. It's really enormous.
Yeah, because it was one of those little thin hardcovers. Oh, not thin, but like a hardcover, right, without the dust jacket.
The 365.
Yeah.
Yeah, it came. It's not handy, but it came.
That's okay, but
yeah,
I remember those. Yeah, they were great. Yeah.
They did a couple of books. They did one on werewolves and one on vampires as well. But that was the biggie. That was really fat book,
Oh yeah, that's awesome. A story for every day of the year, right? So
yeah, something like that. Oh, it also I think it won a Bram Stoker Award for Best Anthology of the Year.
Awesome.
So also before I go, I need to thank, as usual, the Canada Council for doing these, supporting these readings with Canadian authors, and the Writers Union of Canada, which facilitates all this. And Mark, thank you. You'll be in my prayers forever if I pray that you be in there. That's it. And
awesome. Well, thank you,
everybody
guys,
who bothered to come here and hear me read again and stumble through this one. I was nervous today for some reason. Who knows why? But maybe next one will be better.
and so everyone is marking May 27th, 2021.
It'll be advertised all over,
Yeah, awesome. Well, Nancy, thank you so much. It was lots of fun. And good night, everyone. Thanks for hanging out.